Hallelujah. I love Tabernacle. I love y'all. The adventure of experiencing God, we're going to look at today. This is part 6. Am I right? This is our 6th week looking at the adventure of experiencing God. We're really preaching through the book called Experiencing God by a man named Henry Blackaby. How many of you have read or are reading that book right now? How many of you have read or are reading it? Man, come on. You want to hide something from folks? You just put it in the book. My Lord, the book is in the bookstore. The bookstore is open today. Get the book and read it because I'm skipping through it. Those who are helping me preaching, we're not going line by line everything, but I believe it'll be a blessing to you to read the book. And if I preached it as it is in the book, it'll take me a lot longer. And this series is already gonna be at about 12 weeks. So I pray that you get the book. It's nothing to me, but it'll bless you. I've read the book 2-3 times, and it blesses me. Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby. It's in the bookstore. You get it on Amazon. You get it anywhere. It's a phenomenal book. And I felt that this message is so important because, when the borders closed, and they were talking about what could happen if the border stayed closed. One thing, I was at ease. I was out the country, but I said, nobody in Tabernacle cares about that because we have things stored up in our houses. Amen. They can shut down the grocery store today. We good. Amen. Because every time you go grocery shopping, you buy a little extra that you save aside, non-perishable stuff in your house. Because if they shut everything down, don't come to my house. Because I told you to be ready. Right? Don't come to my house. I'll be like, what you want? All right? Yeah. So I don't worry about that. Don't worry about if, people talk about Civil War and all that kind of stuff. We believe in the Second Amendment that, you can have your gun, do whatever else. But the most important thing that you need in tough times is to have a rooted walk with the King. Beyond food, because somebody come jack your food. That's possible. Beyond having a generator, beyond all of those things, beyond having a plan, beyond all of those things, beyond being in shape so that you can move and do all kinds of things. No matter what happens, you got to be rooted in God. I was with a pastor. I was with a pastor in D.C. I left Johannesburg. I was in D.C., and I was with a pastor. Shakira, you can help me with his name. The pastor who was arrested and in prison for 2 years in Turkey. I can't remember his name. You know him. But she can't think of him now. And I can't think of his name. But he said to Sharon and I and others who were with him that when he was arrested, he thought he was ready for persecution. But he said he broke miserably. He was broken by those who captured him. He said, I was broken. They broke me. They broke me. But he said, the Lord restored me in the middle of being broken and carried me through it. The reason why I'm preaching this now, I can preach on all that's going on, and I can go down the line with what's going on in the news and what they're saying in politics and what's going on in the war with Iran and Taiwan and China and the United States and Israel. We know much of that, and it's important for you to know. Hopefully you're not just watching the communist news network to get all your news. Hopefully you're getting off of that. I gave you other places to look at news. But the key is for the saints of God to have an authentic walk with God, not churchianity. Churchianity, I think churchianity is worse than atheism. I believe churchianity is worse than atheism. That form of godliness, denying the power thereof, is worse than somebody who say they don't even believe in God. Going through the motions, faking it, and doing all kinds of things, I think is worse. And so churchianity ain't going to make us through what we have facing us. As parents, we want to protect our children, but we have to prepare our children that we could be separated from our children. What they going to do if they're separated from mama and daddy? You can be separated from your child if your child, just the teacher convinces them that they not what they say they are. I'm not a boy anymore, and they want to cut off my testicles. And you won't let me. They will now, in many states, they will now take your child and put him in foster care from you because you won't affirm what they told him that he or she is or isn't. We have to prepare our children so that they are able to stand, even if we're not around. even we're not around. That was the first conversation we had when the pandemic happened with my family is if they take you and they put you in the hospital and we can't get to you, or I'm in the hospital, or we're wherever together, hold on to the Lord and stay focused on him and make decisions as he leads you to do what is right. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Because everything ain't just going to be peaches and cream. Peaches and ice cream, how about that? It's not going to just be that. And so this adventure of experiencing God is not about self-prosperity. It is for our spiritual preservation in difficult times. I don't know what's about to happen. I know one thing is not about to be easy, and it's not pretty. That the enemy knows his time is short, and he is coming with wrath and fury, especially against the people of God. I can promise you that. But I can promise you another thing, that if we stand with the Lamb, we win. I've read the book. Every prophecy up until now has come true, and I believe this one will come true also. If we stand with the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world, we win. Now, I just got the feeling that when I talked about, I gave you some news sources you can look at. Some of you weren't here when I gave them out, so we're going to send them to you also. So we're going to send you Prayer of 3, and we're going to send you to some news sources you can get off of just watching the propaganda that is given to us, all of the lies that we're given, and we begin to believe the lies. I mean, they lie. They'll tell you a lie today and then tell you another lie against the lie they told you the day before and expect you to believe it. Because the problem is we're so distracted. We get messed up. I mean, all day yesterday was games on all day. So you watch it all again. Oh, it's the game of the year. Every week is a game of the year. Every week. You can't miss this game. This is the game of the year. And if it wasn't the NCAA, it was then going to be the NFL today. And if it ain't that, it's Angela Reese versus Caitlin Clark. It's always going to be something. Who cares? Who cares if Caitlin Clark, Angela Reese? Who cares? Who cares if Alabama lost yesterday to Vanderbilt? Who cares? No, I'm not being funny. I'm serious. Who cares? Who cares about a bunch of millionaires who get overpaid? Why do you think they make so much money for playing sports? Because they're entertainers to keep us distracted off of what's really happening. And they value that. Why don't the teacher of the year, where'd teacher of the year go? Teacher of the year, get more money. All these teachers educating the nation. Why don't teachers get paid more? Why don't police officers get paid more? Why is it that somebody can run up a stinking ball and make money? You should be insulted. You'd be insulted. Somebody can shake their rump in front of a camera, just as stanky as they want to be, shake their rump in front of a camera and make millions. And you got folks that run industry and do all kinds of things. You working hard and they barely pay you and cutting your pay, cutting your benefits, let alone somebody can just, the next rump shaker can come right up in front of the camera. And they pay them. They promote folks to be influencers. You see somebody with 10 million views. You really think 10 million people actually viewed them? They can change that number whenever they want to. He's an influencer. No, he's being pushed. So, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But God came that we might have life, and that more abundant. We live in a time where when you do right, you're criticized. When you do wrong, you're celebrated. Come on now. Because the enemy is controlling the minds of people. So right is wrong. Somebody got with me and they were like, it's just bad. Why can't we Christians go viral? Because you got to be a fool to go viral most of the time. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. You got folks, you got grandmothers on OnlyFans trying to go, man, come on now. Or granddaughters. Or grandsons, because they think that's the only way they can make money. So the venture of experiencing God, if we're going to make it in tough times, and I didn't know the Lord was going to take me here, there, now, it's God's provision and faithfulness is this week's installment. We got to have faith and trust in God's provision and faithfulness. Now, let me move. I'm going to move fast. You can text me. If you have any questions on what I'm sharing today, you can text me at that number, 662-505-4544. The week before last, we talked about God speaks to us in various ways. We said he speaks through the Bible, through prayer, through circumstances, and through the church. That's the people of the church. Last week, Bishop Anthony Harris blessed us and reminded us that we got to make major adjustments in our lives to join God in what he is doing. We can't just come to do, it ain't going to go our way. Some of us are still following our plans that we wrote when we were in the 4th grade and we sticking with it because that was my dream. What did God say? And we got to adjust to what God, I have a dream. This is what I always wanted to do. Is that what God said? Amen. I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be a lawyer. Thank God I didn't. Nothing against you lawyers. I'm just saying that wasn't my call. Be not transformed. He looked at Romans 12:2 and went from there. But today, I'm not going to talk on what he talked on because he talked on it. And if you missed any of the previous 5 installments, you can get them on the app, or you can get them on the YouTube page. Tabernacles, Tab South Haven is on there. And these notes today are on our app and will be on our website, tabsouthaven.org. Today we will see that God provides for us and is faithful even when we are not faithful. Anybody know that to be true? God is faithful even when we're not faithful. And reality, every week there's a different reality, which is a whole message by itself, but I'm dropping them in here. The reality is that I came to know God. We come to know God by experience as we obey him. And he accomplished his works through us. If you're trying to understand God. Reading the Bible is good, but that ain't going to do it. You got to experience him through obedience. You're trying to understand God. Your cognitive big brain. Some of you got some huge brains. Your big old brain, which means you got a big brain, you got a big head. So your big old brain cannot comprehend that. We come to know God by experience as we obey him, and he accomplishes his work through us. How many of you learning God as you obey him, you follow him, you get to know him even better? I never would have knew this unless I did this. I never would have known unless I didn't go, unless I didn't do this. He told you who to marry. God told me who to marry. He told me who to marry. And when I followed him, I found I got the greatest prize ever. The Lord told me. And here's the funny thing. I wasn't even saved yet. I was coming to him. But I wasn't even fully saved. The Lord said, marry that woman. If you don't marry her, your life's going to be jacked. No, the Lord said. And at that time, there was somebody that I thought, brothers, I'm talking to y'all. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm tired of y'all being scared of y'all wives. Tell the truth, man. And God said, you better leave them alone. That's your wife right there. It was as if he was in the back seat of my car on I-94, just had passed Chicago. Mathews 6:25 to 34. I'm going to read it. And I put in bold and highlighted worry. Worry is all through this text. And, I got a problem because we celebrate worry. We celebrate, I'm just an overthinker. Worry. I got a little OCD. Worry. I just love being organized. Worry. That's just how I am. I just got to put things in order. I got a little control. Worry. Oh, I got anxiety. Worry. And we celebrate all of that. But worry is a choice. Worry is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose to do. So you got anxiety, you picked it up, and you carrying it like a bucket of water. Therefore I say to you, do not about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body. What you will put on it. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more value than they? Which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit to your stature? How many of you can add 1 centimeter to how tall you are? Verse 28. So why do you about clothing? I refuse to have a church where you talking about you can't wear something because you wore it last month. Like, are you serious that we looking at you like, we really don't care about what you wear it like that? I can't wear this. I wore this last month. I'm going to tell you a secret. I wore this jacket yesterday. And I told my wife, I like it. I'm wearing it again tomorrow. Consider the lilies of the field. Somebody like, your little first world problems. Get over it. Ain't never been through nothing worried about what you going to wear. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Now, if God so clothed the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore, this is not a suggestion. This is a commandment. Therefore, do not saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For after these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. Woo! But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added to you. Therefore, do not about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about his own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Do not worry, do not worry, do not worry. Why do you worry? Worrying can't fix or change anything. This is what was in this text. What are you worrying about? I got to trust. If God is God, God will provide for me. Now, that don't mean you blow all your money today going to the mall. I was talking to a young man the other day. He's making good money as a teenager, making $9.50 an hour. But I told that young man if he spent $20 on pizza, he just spent 2 hours worth of work for a pizza. And that's just stupid. Save your money. But I'm going to just sit and worry, what with this? I mean, I just blow everything. I got to be wise as a snake, harmless as a dove, consider the ant. But I got to recognize that God will provide. God is a God of provision. What is God's provision? What does it mean? God's provision is God's supply of our needs, not necessarily your wants. God is not interested in you getting 2K25. I mean, he might provide it. I don't see anybody needing 2K25. And I just lost half the brothers in the church. Just got mad at me. What? He don't need you to. But he will supply all our needs. And I have come to the conclusion, if I don't have it now, then I don't need it now. Do you hear what I'm saying? As a child of God, if I don't have it now, I don't need it now. I first moved back here. We moved to Byhalia. We were staying in Byhalia, Mississippi, and we didn't have a car. We had a car. That's another story. And we wanted to go buy a car, and I went to go buy a car, and we were about to buy a car, and then went to one of these little small places, a little small place. I think they might tote your note, and you'd be scared of them because they will rob you blind. And I walked in, I could just smell a rat. I smell a rat. And Sharon's like, what's going on? I said, I just smell a rat. And the man was just walking up. I was like, no, we ain't buying a car here. Then we went down there, oh, man, by Wolf Chase. Down there, what's that road where the car dealers are? Yeah, Covington Pike. So we go down Covington Pike, I said, we're going to the real car dealer. I ain't going to this dude. I smell a rat. And so I went there, and then they ran my stuff, and then they said, you qualify. And we're going to give you this car. I said, oh, thank you. And then they went back to get the paperwork, and I'm sitting there and said, the Lord said, they ain't did you no favor. We did you a favor. We're going to give you this car. I said, what's my interest rate again? And they told me this exorbitant interest rate. And I said, that's what you say, what? Oh, that ain't nothing. Your note going to be this. I said, no, I want to talk interest rates. No, don't worry about the rate. You just need to worry about the note. Because, see, they thought I was so thirsty, needing a car. But God, we were sitting there. Sharon nudged me, and they walked out again. Their problem was they took too long. They walked out again. Sharon said, do we really need this? I was like, hush, woman, let's live in faith. And then it hit me. It got in my spirit. We don't need it. And then I looked at the lady and said, you so nice. And the man, y'all so nice, but we leaving out of here. We don't want this car no more. But it's yours. God will supply my needs, not just my wants. And I want this car, but I don't need this car. I'm gonna go drive in my hoopty for a little while longer that I'm paying for, because y'all already done tried to play me. Just because you got it didn't mean you needed it. Every time I go in the store, they want me to open up a new credit card. Tell me I'm gonna get a discount. Ain't no discount. By the time I get my first finance charge, they're gonna get that discount money back. Then I look at the person, no, I ain't going in debt to y'all. They be like, no, they doing you a favor. Then you can cancel it later. Devil is a lie. You gonna do a hard pull on my credit? We're gonna open this up, and I charge $200, and I end up having to pay $2,000. I learned this by experience, y'all. I've been a fool before. God, thank you for supplying our needs, but everything, not always our wants. And sometimes we get the two confused. We went a year once without electricity. We found out how much we can live without electricity. We didn't have electricity for a whole year. And that wasn't because we didn't pay the bill, by the way. Just for you, whoa, Pastor, you didn't pay your bill? We went a whole year without electricity for a year. Was it about a year, right, Sharon? Yeah, a year and 6 months. It was a little while. But we found out it's some amazing things we can do without electricity. They said, we didn't need it that bad, but when it came back on, we was happy. John chapter 6, verse 4 through 12. Jesus was feeding the 5,000. This passage, I love it. I'm not going to read it all like I did the passage that we read a moment ago from Mathews. It says, now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was near. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes, and seeing a great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread that these may eat? He said, wait a minute, we saw there was a great multitude coming toward Jesus. Jesus turns to Philip, who we know didn't have no money, and he says, where can we buy bread for all these folks? But this, he said, to test him. Do you see this? I underlined it, made it bold, and I believe it's in italics. But this, he said, to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. I'm going to press pause there. There are some situations you in that God gave you a task that's way beyond your financial or your wherewithal ability to do. And you say, this can't be God because I don't have the money. And He was testing you to see if you trusted your own power or do you trust him. I'm just mad. My whole week jacked up. God told me to do this, and he know I ain't got no money. He was testing you. You see this? This he did to test it because he already knew what he was going to do. He was wondering, will you trust me in provision? Philip answered him and said, 200 denarii worth of bread. That's almost a year's salary. 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them that every one of them may have. And then Andrew, Simon's brother, came with the little boy's lunch and said, what about this? This is all we got. And God took it. And by the way, it says there in the text, just down below there, that the number of people that were there were about 5,000. And they fed them from a lunch. When you trust God, he will take the little. If you give God the little you have, I need you to hear the little you have. And I'm not just talking financially, but I am talking financially. Listen, I learned a long time ago, however he blessed me, I'm going to tithe. My bill's never too high to not tithe. That first thing come up top. Ain't never too high to tithe. Well, I didn't tithe because, we got bills. First of all, I need to check. Do I really need that Wi-Fi? It's free down there at McDonald's. Like, oh, no, not the Wi-Fi. Now, I done reduced my cable satellite. Now we reduced it, and I'm sitting with my children yesterday. I'm happy to be home. I'm sitting with my beautiful children. My boy comes home from school. I'm just sitting there saying, y'all, I want to watch a show. I won't tell you what show it was, but the movie I want to watch, I pay for the cable, but now I got to pay for the movie. Now, why do I got the cable if I got to pay for the movie on the cable? Is it just me? Oh, okay. Why did I bring that up? I have no idea, but it fits right about here for some reason. God will supply, and he gave the little he had. Oh, my point is, I don't need that anyway. If that's going to keep me from tithing, if that's going to keep me from blessing God, then cut that. Then cut this. What I need $5 coffees for. Do we really care that you got a Starbucks coffee cup in your hand? Yeah, you can pay $5 a day, but you do $5 times 6 times 4 times 12. 5 times 6 is 30. I'm doing this on the fly. Help me. 5 times 6 is 30. Times 4 is 120. Times 12, what's that? Help me out. Come on, my Coty. Huh? What'd she say, 1440? 14,040, 1,440, $1,440 worth of coffee. And that's without the latte, cafe, mocha, extra pumps, the big one. I gave you the cheap one. And you, God bless you with a coffee machine with them little pods. You can just put it, you make it yourself. You talking about you suffering. You just threw $1,000 away for coffee. You ain't broke. Your priorities off. Priorities off. Your shoes are paid 2 car notes. Now you talking about the man you trying to hide your car. Now you can't hide your car. Anybody my age, you know, you can park the car around the block and they wouldn't find it. But now they got low jack on everybody's car. You park the car around the block you want, it's gonna be gone. Y'all act like you don't know what I'm talking about. Let me get back to the gospel before I get mad. I gotta trust that God will put you for a test. And the test is, do you believe that God is faithful? God's unwavering commitment to his promises and to his people. Are there anybody that's God's people? Hebrews 13, 5 and 6 says, let your conduct be without covetousness. Covetousness will mess you up. You want what other folks got. I want the perfume they got. I mean, my Lord, the perfume they got, it's just a little monkey urine mixed with this and mixed with that. What? What'd I say? Yeah. Oh, okay. You're going to know one day what I'm talking about. I don't have to have what everybody else have. I don't have to fit in with everybody. I have to trend with everybody else. As a matter of fact, I'm a peculiar people. I don't need to fit in with everybody else. Let your life be without covetousness. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we may boldly say, so wait a minute, be content with what I have. The Lord is with me, and I can boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not. What can man do to me? Them storms rolling through Florida like nobody's business. Florida, Georgia, all the way up in the hills of Carolina where they're not supposed to be. Do you think anybody cares about what they're wearing today in Asheville, North Carolina? Do you think anybody worried about what kind of cell phone you have where the towers are out? What you think is important today won't be, and I'm not saying nothing wrong. Y'all remember when I got my cell phone? I'm happy for my new cell phone. But I'm happy. I like my jacket. I wore it 2 days in a row. But my point is that there are some things we put a priority on that has nothing to do with how life is. And by the way, I just got to throw this out in the next message. I'm almost done. By the way, if we raise our children to be soft and have everything because everybody has it, when the storm hits, they're going to be in trouble. I learned as a parent, just because I can buy it don't mean I'm going to buy it. Because you don't need to have everything. You need to value something. You need to earn something. Have something to look forward to. You taking your child to the kindergarten prom in a limo. What they going to look forward to in high school? Your child got all fresh, new clothes. Sometimes need some hand-me-downs at some point. Christmas, you spending $2,000, $3,000 per child. Going into debt, then talking about Lord make a way. The intersection between provision and faithfulness. Remember, God will provide, but God is also faithful. The intersection between provision and faithfulness. Faithfulness, how God's provision demonstrates his faithfulness, and how our obedience and trust impact our experience of God's provision and faithfulness. Say, you got to obey, and this is what he said last week, the same thing. We must obey God to understand his provision. We got to obey him to understand his provision. Somebody, God didn't do nothing for me. That question keeps coming up. I mean, all this year it keeps coming up. What'd you do for God? God didn't do nothing for me. Why would he give you more and you not even following him? He said, I will bless you to be a blessing. He just want to bless you so you can be, hot. Look at me now. Y'all thought I wasn't going to be nobody. You thought I wasn't going to be nothing. They laughed at me. They said I wasn't nothing. Now look at me. Top of the world, Ma. Top of the world. There's some people watch the same movies that I watch. That's old. There. That's James Cagney. The bottom line is this. The Lord continues to bless those who are a blessing. You clench your fist, he got to pry your hands open just to put a blessing there. When you have an open hand and say, Lord, as you give, I'm going to give. As you bless me, I'm going to be a blessing. I'm going to bless somebody. I begin to understand God even more. We still worried about what God has done for us. What have I done with what God has given me? We experience God through obedience. I can't say this enough. The importance of obedience and experiencing God's provision and faithfulness is huge. It reminds me of, and in a book he gives an example of a woman named Corrie ten Boom. Corrie ten Boom wrote a book called The Hiding Place. It's a true autobiography about her life during World War II, growing up in Holland during the Nazi occupation. This is her family. Corrie ten Boom is her father was a Dutch watchmaker, she was a watchmaker, and with her family helped hundreds of Jews escape the Nazi occupation. We do know that during World War II, over 6 million Jews and other people were killed by the Nazis. They wanted to exterminate certain people. But there were people who were Christians who helped save them. Not enough, but there were people who fought to save them. They hid Jews in their home, and they trusted God to provide food and shelter and safety, even at the time, something we could not comprehend, because during the war at that time, they were rationing food per individual. So you get a little ticket, and you'll get this much for the week as an individual. And they had all these extra people in their house, and they still trusted God for enough food to feed them. They couldn't go to the grocery store and buy more. Money could not help. There are many places in the world where people are starving, not because they're poor, but because of scarcity. You can look, like, for instance, the Ethiopian famine in the 80s, and everybody in Ethiopia poor. No, there were people more rich than any of us in this room who died of starvation. And you need to understand that. In places where there's starvation, it's not about money. It's about availability of resources. So you had rich people who live in the palace, but there was no money, no food coming because of war, because of an embargo, because somebody blocked it, somebody burned the fields, and so there was nothing for nobody. So you can have money and it's nothing. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwean dollar was, because you need to know. Zimbabwean dollar was stronger than a U.S. dollar. You do know where Zimbabwe is, right? Okay. So the Zimbabwean dollar, that's in southern Africa, just above South Africa. The Zimbabwean dollar was stronger than the U.S. dollar. Then there was an embargo put upon Zimbabwe, where then a loaf of bread was for $120. And then people began to starve. Even people right now are suffering. Highly educated, not highly educated, affluent, great life. How do you buy, if a loaf of bread is $120? And that's what, by the way, that's what's happening. That's what's being tried to happen to the U.S. dollar right now. By the way. That's why inflation is going up, and we keep getting in debt. And now we owe other countries in debt. They're going to call their debt, and our dollar will be worth nothing, and a loaf of bread could easily be $120 next week. And what will you do then? What will you do then? How God provides How God provides for the Ten Boom family gives us some example. Let me just show you this real quick. Because God's provision is not just money. God provided for their family. They had to hide the Jews, and so the father was not a carpenter, but God gave him provision on resources, but also expertise to make a secret room. He built a wall in front of the wall, and behind that wall was a room where they hid the Jews. That was God's provision to give him intellectual provision. God provided food and supplies despite the rationing from the government. God protected them from raids. The Gestapo, that's the secret police of Hitler, came to raid them many times and didn't catch them many times because God protected them. God provided inspiration and strength. Even Corrie ten Boom and her sister Betsy, who finally they got caught, went to prison in Ravensbrück, and they had unimaginable hardship. God provided spiritual strength, and they attributed this to praying Psalms 91 regularly. As a matter of fact, God provided fleas for them. You know what I mean? Let me show you. Let me show you. This is the barracks in which, not even, that's just kind of a look of it. This is where they were stored in the concentration camps. And they were forced to work and killed and all kinds of things. The barracks where they were kept, hundreds of prisoners were in there, and it was infested with fleas. They were getting flea bites all over. There were all kinds of diseases going all around. You see there in cubby holes, hundreds of women just stuck up in there. No heat, no air, no nothing. Old, young, whatever. They're in there. And they're wondering, God, how did you put us in here? We're not even Jews. We're Christians. We're trying to help them. And there's fleas everywhere. Have you ever been bitten by fleas? Anybody? They hurt. And they hurt, little flea bites. And they're getting eaten up by fleas, eaten alive. People dying all around them. And they wonder, where was God? Put me in this flea-bitten place with all of this dread that is here. It wasn't until years later they found out. And by the way, Corrie and her sister Betsy started hosting Bible study with Jews who had not completed and knew Jesus, many of them who had gotten saved, and they were not interrupted by the guards. And it wasn't until years later they found out from a guard who finally came to Christ and asked for forgiveness. They said, we never went into your barracks because there were so many fleas, we stayed out. We were supposed to come through. We just say we went through. In other words, even what looked like it was bad was provision from God to protect them from the guards. Are you all with me? December 28th, 1944, Corrie ten Boom was released from the concentration camp. Right before, this is before D-Day. This is before Normandy. This is the stuff they don't teach our children in school. You need to know about. This is before Normandy, where the U.S. troops came and liberated Europe and came and fought against Hitler and destroyed the Axis powers. Just before that, people are dying. Her sister dies, and she's released because of an error on the paperwork. That was God's provision, was the error that released her from prison. And she believed that the clerical error that caused her to get out of prison was an act of God, providing, allowing her to share her story, spread hope, establish a rehabilitation center for concentration camp survivors, travel the world, preaching the gospel and encouraging faith. By the way, I just want to say this in 30 seconds. There are people who say the Holocaust didn't happen. That's because they ain't never been nowhere, and they just go on YouTube. Holocaust didn't happen. I was in Ukraine with Holocaust survivors. I've been to concentration camps. I know where the concentration camps are. Been to all of these other places. Met people, primary source eyewitnesses who were in concentration camps, and met people who knew, that'd be secondary sources, knew soldiers who were working in those places. They did exist. And if you think you a Jew, then thank God you a Jew with yourself. Thank God you wasn't put in a concentration camp. And they not bombing you right now with your Jew self. Because you want to sit here in Memphis and say, I'm a Jew, they ain't the real Jews. Well, you better be quiet so they don't find out and come bomb you. How about that? 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 through 7 is an account of God's provision in phenomenal ways. Because God's provision is miraculous. And if we're going to experience a God, we got to be open to experience his provision. A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, whichever side attracts you from, saying, now look at all these bad things that happened to her. Your servant, my husband, is dead. Her husband, who was a man of God, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord. And a creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be slaves. That's pretty bad, isn't it? Your servant, my husband, is dead, and they're coming to make him slaves. So Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? And she said, I have nothing in my house but 1 jar of oil. Then the man said, go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour into all the vessels. Now watch this. A part of the miracle of provision is that she and her sons work together. We know she had at least 2 sons because it's plural. So at least 3 of them or more worked together. That there are miracles of provision. Nobody had nothing. They were all broke. But he said, you and your sons, you go get the vessels, borrow some containers, and you start pouring. And it came to pass when the vessels were full that she said to her son, bring me another vessel. And then he said, there's not another vessel. So the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil, pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. Let me tell you this. She was obedient to God. It didn't make no sense. What sense did that make? To go bring empty jars in your house. It's kind of like when God told me, I had a few miracles of provision, but the one that I'll tell you now as I end. God told my wife and I to move, to first leave my job, leave the house that we bought that we thought was the greatest house ever, 2, 4, 5 bedroom, 4,000 square feet, beautiful house, and said go. But the worst part was, just when he told me to leave my job and my business, if I left my job, I was leaving my health insurance. My health insurance, I didn't have the health insurance I have now. I had the prime health insurance, the top Blue Cross. I'm talking the top Blue Cross. I was proud of that because my daddy always told me, man got to have good health insurance for a family. So at the top one. The one when you walk in the hospital, they like, ooh, okay, come on in. I walk in any hospital like, yep, it's me. I even told my wife, we're having babies, I got the best Blue Cross. I look at them doctors like, you want to know something? Don't talk to her, talk to me. I'm the one that got this Blue Cross. There you go. Put it in the best room. Give it ice cream. And bring me a meal too and put it on the tab. And then God said, leave the job and trade your Blue Cross for the cross. But here's the thing. Just as we're about to end the insurance, we found out that we had a baby coming. Now, who leaves their insurance as soon as you find out we pregnant? Didn't make no sense. And God said, I'm testing you. He didn't say it, but I just felt it. And I talked to Sharon, and Sharon said, you my man, I'm following you. Ain't no woman like the one I got. You my man, I'm following you. And I just said, well, I got it in. Then there's something, what they call it, Cobra. You get a little while after. But then Cobra ran out. And the Cobra ran out because I left the country anyway. They don't know what Cobra is over there. And we get over there, and there's no insurance, and the baby is growing. Now, I had thought all along that Anissa was our last child. But obviously she wasn't. Because there's a baby growing inside my wife. No prenatal care yet. No insurance. In another country. She asked a lady who didn't even like her. That's just the truth. God used a lady that don't even like us. He said, do you know of a OB that we could go to? And she said, oh yeah, there's a Dr. Moilua. Go to Dr. Moilua at the top private hospital. And we walk in the top private hospital. I put on my nice suit. We come to the doctor's appointment because we're going to get ultrasound and all this other kind of stuff. And we walk in. Hello. And they ask us, in Africa, what kind of insurance you got? We private pay. Y'all going to pay for yourself? Yep, private pay. And the Lord told Sharon, when you go in the doctor, she just began to befriend the doctor. How are you? How can I pray for you? I don't know what all Sharon was saying to this woman. But I know she began befriending her. First appointment. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon. Stand up and say objection. First appointment. We supposed to come out and pay. And the lady said, y'all will see me later. The doctor overrode the receptionist. That don't happen. I'll see y'all later. We said, okay. And it basically, we're like, okay, you'll bill us. And she comes back for her regular prenatal appointments. Prenatal, you don't get pregnant without taking the vitamins. So take your prenatal vitamins. Say amen, women. You got the prenatal vitamins and the other stuff and taking care, and the baby is growing. We ain't got no insurance. They tell us it's going to be about $5,000. That ain't nothing here, $5,000 for whole birth. But that might as well have been $50,000 U.S. to me, because I was bringing in a tenth of that a month. Okay, so it's going to be that. Baby is coming. Sharon's growing. She's going to the doctor. Nowadays, she goes to the doctor. I don't go. And she's telling about the great relationship she has with the doctor, how she's praying with her, and about her ministry and about her family. We think nothing of it. Well, let me fast forward. We get to the day, and we didn't even worry. We didn't worry. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have a car to get her to the hospital. But on the day that one decided to come to the earth, I had arranged with a man to come pick me up to buy a sign for the front of the church. And the man is usually late. He always on African time. We call that CP time. So he's usually late. So I told him, come early at about 7 in the morning, and I figured he'd be there by 8:30. Why this day he was there right on time as her labor pains started getting tough. That was a little raggedy vehicle that every bump, you feel it. But it got us to the hospital. So he comes in. She said, I'm having pains. We got to get to the doctor. And I'm like, oh, Lord, how are we going to get you to the doctor? And then who come pulling up? This guy right on time who's never on time. And he says, we're going to pick up the sign. Change the plans. Take us to the hospital. We get to the hospital. We come in. And to make a long story short, we had the baby. Beautiful baby boy. We're so happy to have this baby boy. He's such a blessing. And the baby boy comes. And then we take him home. Sharon didn't want to stay. She said that by the next day, I'm going home. I won't be laying up in this hospital. I said, okay, let's go home. Before you go home, you got to check out. Really, we were supposed to pay before we got in. That's how they do. And the doctor said, y'all, listen, I talked to the hospital. And listen, there was a natural delivery. We didn't even give her any medication because she didn't believe in medication, because she just felt like you can't push and do all those things. You can ask her about that. She know those things. And she said, and I just basically caught the baby, and you were here at the hospital. Y'all only stayed a day. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay. Best doctor, best hospital. Now, I'm telling you this because I was a fool. People say, what kind of husband are you that would leave your job and your insurance when your wife pregnant? That don't make no sense. And guess what? A year and a half later, we were pregnant again. Same doctor. Same story. Didn't pay. Better care than we had received at the hospitals that we had with the other children. Better care, no money. And God said, I got you. I'm taking care of you. And when you trust God for provision, because I got to bag up. Because there were people that told me if I trusted God, I would cut it off. Cut off and stop having babies. But God said, don't cut nothing off that I open. God said, I'm going to provide for you. I'll provide for your children. And he provided. Not only did he bless us with 2 more children, but he provided and took care of it. And at the same time, God showed himself in all kinds of ways. And I can go on and on and on and tell you about the provision of God when you obey him. And don't know how he going to do. You can't just say, well, I think God going to do this. I had no idea. This lady was the top doctor in the top hospital, in the top ward, in the top everything. I fully expected for a big bill, and I'm going to sit and beg and say, can I pay on it? But God provided. And I'm saying to you, when you trust God, stop thinking, because we think we know. We think we know. That don't work like that. It ain't like that. I had a preacher tripping, ain't like that. Then you will never know God. till you trust him. I'm not telling nobody to leave their job tomorrow and your wife pregnant. That ain't what I'm telling you. That's what he told me to do. But whatever he tell you to do it and trust him and watch him show himself. Woo! I can tell you more instances of provision. I can tell you how God provides, how God shows himself, how just like the woman with the meal, it never ran out. I can tell you about how God, I had food and I don't know how the food just kept going. I don't know if anybody know that. I had food. It may have just been oatmeal, but the oatmeal never found a bottom. It just kept feeding us. Whatever it may be, God will provide. And when you trust and obey and say, Lord, I just trust you. I just trust you. And I just stand upon your promises, and I believe I will experience God by trusting that he's a God of faithfulness and provision. You will never be ashamed. He says it over and over in the scripture, the righteous will never be ashamed. Let's look at questions really quick, and I'm done. I'm done. If we have any questions, I don't know. Let me look and see. We do not. All right. Huh? Oh. Okay. Thank you. Somebody asked a question. Will you be sharing your Bible study guide? I think we sent it. Did you all get the guide on how to read the Bible this week? We emailed it. We emailed it, y'all. So if you didn't get it in email, that means your email is not accurate on the church database. Just call the office, 662-404-8857, and then they'll get you the email. But I sent the Bible, how to read the Bible guide. That is sent. What's the difference between God testing and you being tempted? Woo! Great question. Let me think. Man, let me come back to you. Let's read the other question. I got the answer, but I just want to give you a better answer. We experience God through obedience. I agree completely. God told me to help someone that isn't very nice to me. They actually are quite rude. I didn't want to do what God asked because I felt the help wouldn't be received. To be quite honest, the person had gotten ruder. Is this a trick of the enemy to stop doing what God told me to do? Yep. Because, listen, just because the person, God didn't say help them and they're going to be nice and be your best friend, you're going to live happily ever after. He told you to serve them. And if he told you to serve them and they got ruder, that's their problem, not yours. And one day they'll say, nobody ever did anything, and God said, yes, they did. I sent somebody and they loved you. And guess what? When you trust God and you do for someone else, don't worry about that person reciprocating and blessing you in some kind of way. But God will bless those who are faithful. He'll bless you some other way, some way, somehow. And you'll never know how. Hallelujah. So, yeah. That is a trick of the enemy. Because the scripture also tells us in Romans chapter 12, when your enemy is hungry, feed him. When he's thirsty, give him something to drink. For in so doing, you heap coals of fire on their head. You love on them, regardless of how they do you. Don't return fire with fire. Now, back to the question, what's the difference between God testing you and being tempted? Here's what it is. Because to test you, to see will you trust God. For instance, Jesus told Philip heard Jesus say, feed these people. He knew it from God. God said feed them. And Philip was tested to see, will you follow what Jesus said? And how do you know what's from God and what's from the devil? Because the enemy is not going to tell you to do the things that God will. The enemy is not going to tell you to do the things that God will have you to do. And remember, the scripture says, my sheep know my voice. And to learn God's voice, it starts on a small scale. Obedience, just God will show you what to wear. Do you know God will show you what clothes to wear today? God will show you which way to go. God will show you what to cook for your family. I know I'm telling the truth. It's just, my wife sometimes calls it happy food. There's some food she just make happy food. Just, don't ask me. I can't explain it. But the happy food makes us happy. And so, yeah, I just felt to make this. I felt to make this. And when you trust God on the small things, and you know I heard his voice on this. Oh, that was God. And then you see, oh, I didn't understand this, but it did this. God told me to do this. God told me to share my testimony with somebody who needed to hear. God told me to call somebody who really needed me to call them. On those things, God told me to do these. God told me to give more in the offering. And God did this. Then as you get to larger things, you understand the voice of God. That same voice that you heard. And sometimes, have you ever heard God tell you to do something and you did something else, and then he come back and say, I told you to do this. That ever happen to you? Then that helps you to know his voice even better, to say, oh, next time I'm going to follow that voice. Because my sheep know my voice. And a hireling, they won't hear. You won't hear someone else's voice. But it comes in communion. It comes in prayer with God, listening and hearing God. And temptation comes. Remember, we're tempted by the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, pride of life. Temptation comes not to glorify God. The enemy's not going to tell you to do something that's going to glorify God. Now, there are some things God tells us to do. We want to blame it on Satan because our flesh don't want to do it. The lust of our flesh, this is not going to look good. But God is calling. I hope that answered your question. I want to pray even right now. God is saying, I'll provide for you in uncertain economy, in uncertain times, in divine cause. Whew. As you follow God, you need to know God will provide. A prophet came to me once. I didn't know this guy from Adam. And a prophet came to me, and he said a lot of things, but I'm going to give you the last thing that he told me. Because when I was looking to serve God and move away from the job and the insurance and all this other stuff in the big house, I wanted to have a lot of money in the bank. In my mind, needed to have $60,000 cash saved before I moved. I needed 60 G's cash. I wasn't going nowhere until I had $60,000 cash. And that made sense to me because I know what I like and I know what I need to do. I needed 60,000 cash before I left the country. And right when I'm trying to save that kind of money, and I ain't going nowhere, Lord, till I got 60,000. Jesus didn't tell me that. That was my pragmatic thinking. A prophet came to me and said, you trying to figure everything out and trying to work it and trying to do, but God is saying, trust me and follow me because your provision is at your assignment. What you need is not, you're not going to get it here. Your provision won't be till you get to where you need to be. Ooh, that blew me away. And you know what? That was true. I got to my assignment broke. And God provided. And guess what? I needed to be broke because people came and lined up to me with business plans and ministry plans for me to invest in. And had I had the money, I would have gave it to them. And they were crooks. I found out later they were crooks. I thought they were really good people. And had I had the money that I thought I was going to have, I would have said, oh, brother, let me help do this. Oh, sister, let us help do that. Let us help. I would probably say, I couldn't help you if I wanted to. Then God revealed they wasn't the right people. And watch this. Watch this. I'm going to say this. I know we on live and we broadcast all around the world. There's some provision. When I left and Sharon was pregnant, that was 20 years ago. What's the date today? We left on the 4th of October. 20 years ago. We left on the 4th of October. So this is the 6th, 2 days later. There is some provision. When I just went to South Africa now, there's some provision that God opened up last week from me saying yes 20 years ago. Now, let me just say this. The provision is so big that it will affect you, this church, the church overseas. It is so big that I don't want to say anymore. It is so huge. It's big on anybody's scale. And God said, I need to wait for you to walk for 20 years. And then I come and I walk in some doors. I went in a door that I thought previously was impossible. I sat at a table with somebody. I'm just holding it because you know what, everybody don't need to know. I sat at a table with somebody who's over billions, who said, let's work together and do this. I hope y'all hear what I'm trying to say. Your provision is at your assignment. And just because you walk there and say, where is it? Where is it? He needs you to just keep following. Step by step by step by step. And then a man posted just this week. You didn't see it because you don't know him. Maybe you saw it. A man posted and said, this guy is the real deal. Because I remember when he was broke selling chickens on the street. And we've been watching him for 20 years. When I was broke selling chickens, because I had never raised a chicken in my life, but I was now raising 500 chickens at a time with a whole doctorate degree. And I'm raising stinking chickens. Because God said raise the chickens and sell them wholesale with a doctorate. And I learned how, I'd kill a chicken something. Y'all wring the neck. I cut his head off. Spin them up. Pull them guts out. Clean them. Chicken chitlins. And keep on going. And I believe God gave me strength. God gave me ability. God gave me power. That his provision, I promise you, opened up just this past week. Literally 20 years almost to the date. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. And the only thing I regretted, I said, I need my whole family here sitting at this door that I'm in right now. Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, how am I just here? Sharon, you need to be here. I need Gershom, Tume, Nisa, everybody. Jamil, Keely, all of them. Because see, here's what we do. Yeah, see, I joined the church. I've been tithing for 6 months, and ain't nothing happened. I've been waiting for God. Ain't nothing happened. It may be 10 years from now, but you need to trust that God is faithful. In the middle of that, we've had miscarriages. In the middle of that, we've lost children. In the middle of that, I've had a year with no electricity. In the middle of that, I've gotten robbed so many times I can't even count it. In the middle of that, I've had hardships. In the middle of that, I went through some things you have no idea. You have no idea, but God knows. And he said, I still got you. I've been surrounded. I've had guns at my head. I've had people wanting to kill me. All in the middle of all of that. But I still said, in spite of all of that, though you slay me, yet will I trust you. Yet will I trust you. I got so sick with a disease, the doctors didn't even know what it was. I think they named it after me. My face was swollen and hanging, and my face was hanging and moving. I said, how can God put me in this place? And I got this disease where my whole face is hanging and moving. And that was after the time where half of my face was paralyzed. They ain't no just, I came to God and then everything was okay. We went through something, but God said, will you trust me even when it don't make sense? When a girl in the church got sick and died, they told us to come pick her up, take her to the hospital. She had blood coming out of her eyes, her ears, her nose, her mouth. And we got there, they said, it looks like Ebola. If you know anything about Ebola, you get near it, you die in 24 hours. And I said, doctor, how do I know if I don't have Ebola? I've been carrying this dead body in my car. I carried her dead body into the hospital. How do I know I don't have Ebola? She said, if you don't die by tomorrow, you don't have it. And I go back home, and what I do, go to sleep. If I got it, she got it, she got it, they got it. We all dead. But God said, trust me. I'm going to provide for you. And I woke up, no blood out my nose, no blood out my eyes, no blood out my ears. Baby's sitting there crying, a little snot coming out his nose, that's about it. I guess we're going to be all right. Because I trust God. Because God is faithful. And he will provide. And it's not always pretty. It's not always smooth. It's not always happy. But I still trust you. I still trust you. I trust you. I trust you. And I'm going to keep serving. And I'm not going to wear my feelings on my sleeve. I'm going to serve with joy. And I'm going to serve because you're good. I'm going to serve because you're faithful. And if you don't do nothing else, thank you for what you've already done. And when you do that, demons have no power over you. Glory, it ain't always going to feel right. It ain't always going to look right. But God is still faithful. And I haven't told you half the story. I haven't told you half the story. You got kids, their favorite toy is rats, kicking rats. They like kicking rats. They still talk about it. Man, we used to kick rats. I kick more rats than you. And you're like, Lord, I got to do better than this. And God says, stay right there. Don't move. This is where I want you to be. And your provision is at your assignment. And for many of us, we're going to other assignments. And you can't experience God because TV told you what it's supposed to be. Your favorite influencer told you how it's supposed to be. You thought you were supposed to get rich in the next few days. You thought everything was going to be happily ever after by the end of the month. You set a deadline on God. As long as I'm living, I trust you will be faithful. If God is speaking to you, come quickly to this altar. Come quickly. Hey, everybody. My God, my heart is full. I'm excited because the vision that God has given us is coming to pass. Enough is enough. From the conception until 2 years, the most deadly time in a child's life in America. The church is being a church, doing something about it. We literally have over 500 families here represented, blessing them. Christian and government community organizations all around this room, mothers and fathers, the father's den upstairs, the children being ministered to in the room next door. This is what God said we'd be able to do. Dr. Q English from the Department of Health and Human Services, she's the church coordinator. They're doing big things. Look at this room. Just look at the room. Look at all of these souls here, and they're all saying thank you. They're all being linked to resources. They're all being blessed. God is showing himself in great ways. Can you see it? Whoa! I thank God for what he's doing. Let's keep fighting a good fight of faith. It is worth it.